All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep, really fascinating dive into the hidden behavioral neuroscience that is secretly governing your professional and personal growth. Look, if you're a high-performing professional, an executive, or just someone deeply invested in peak performance, you've probably spent countless hours optimizing your strategies. But there's a silent biological barrier operating right beneath the surface of your awareness. It dictates your daily actions, it limits your potential, and honestly, it often keeps you locked in the exact same patterns year after year. So today we're going to unpack the mystery of why we struggle so much to change, and we're going to do it by looking at the literal mechanics of your brain.
It's the ultimate uncomfortable paradox, isn't it? As ambitious people, we're constantly setting these massive goals. We want to scale our businesses, elevate our leadership, get into absolute peak physical shape, and cultivate razor-sharp focus. We have the desire. We definitely have the ambition. We even have the step-by-step strategic plans mapped out. And yet, so often, we just find ourselves completely stuck. We hit a wall. So the fundamental question we have to confront right at the top of this explainer is this. If you genuinely want to change, and if changing would undoubtedly make you happier and more successful, why on earth don't you do it?
Imagine for a second that I presented you with a magic button. Now, if you press this button, you don't just get a temporary boost. You instantly transform. You wake up with completely effortless discipline, optimized health, unshakable confidence, and peak productivity. Every bit of executive dysfunction just vanishes. Logically speaking, the choice is an absolute no-brainer. Every single rational person on the planet would smash that button without a second thought to instantly upgrade their life, right?
But then we look at the reality, and the reality is a stark, almost jarring contrast to that hypothetical magic button. Every single day, millions of highly intelligent, incredibly capable people say they want to change. They read the books, they go to the seminars, they draft the vision boards, and yet every single day, they actively choose to stay exactly where they are. They repeat the exact same habits, endure the same frustrations, and cycle through the same old problems. It creates this massive cognitive dissonance. Why do we actively choose our current, flawed baselines over actual evolution?
To start unraveling this, I want to open up a psychological narrative loop by looking at a very famous behavioral experiment. Researchers gave participants a choice. Option A was a guaranteed, albeit small, loss. You know exactly what you're losing, and yeah, it hurts a little. Option B was an unknown risk, but it carried a significantly high reward potential that could actively, tangibly improve their lives. Overwhelmingly, the participants chose option A. They chose the guaranteed suffering over the unknown possibility of a better outcome. I want you to guard this thought carefully in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer, because this specific tendency holds the absolute key to unlocking why our habits are so fiercely resistant to change.
Section 1. The myth of discipline.
In the corporate world, behavioral change is almost always boiled down to one buzzword: discipline. We're told that if we aren't changing, well, we simply aren't disciplined enough. We just need to try harder. We need more willpower. But think about it. If brute willpower were the real answer, highly intelligent people wouldn't struggle. Look at this juxtaposition here. It completely shatters the illusion that logic automatically equals execution. We have doctors, people who intimately understand the ravaging biological effects of tobacco, who still smoke. We have top-tier psychologists, literally experts in human motivation, who suffer from chronic procrastination. We have brilliant financial analysts, people who build complex economic forecasts, drowning in self-sabotaging personal debt. If change were just about having the right information and the discipline to apply it, these scenarios simply wouldn't exist. There's clearly a much deeper biological barrier at play here.
We have to completely reframe how we view our own minds. Your brain, for all of its magnificent processing power, was not designed for evolution, self-actualization, or corporate success. It was engineered over millennia with one strict overriding program, and that is survival. And from an evolutionary standpoint, survival rarely means taking bold risks for personal growth. Survival usually means repetition. It means conserving energy. It means sticking to what hasn't killed you yet. Suddenly, what you've been calling laziness or a lack of discipline reveals itself as an incredibly efficient, ancient survival mechanism.
Section 2. The biology of stagnation.
To truly master our behavior, we have to look under the hood at how our ancient survival software interprets the modern, high-stakes environments we operate in today. For almost the entirety of human history, the unknown was a literal death sentence. An unknown forest? Predators. An unfamiliar tribe? Conflict. A new food? Poison. So the brain learned to equate the unknown with mortal danger. Fast forward thousands of years, and that mechanism is completely unchanged. Only the scenery is different. Today, your unknown forest is pivoting your career. Your unfamiliar tribe is ending a comfortable but stagnant relationship. Your new food is the risk of scaling a new business. Your brain perceives these modern executive threats with the exact same alarm bells as an ancient predator.
It all boils down to this fundamental biological equation. Predictability equals safety. Uncertainty equals danger. When you try to change your habits, build a new company, or radically shift your management style, you are inherently introducing uncertainty into your system. And your brain immediately senses this uncertainty and throws up massive resistance. It pumps out stress hormones, it creates brain fog, and it rationalizes really convincing reasons to just quit. This resistance to change isn't a sign of weakness. It's not a lack of character. It's your brain working flawlessly, exactly as intended, aggressively protecting you from the danger of the unknown.
Section 3. The invisible enemy. Identity.
But biology is only half the picture. We need to shift from evolutionary biology into the realm of deep psychology, where we meet the invisible enemy of all high performers, identity. Now here is a profound concept that very few truly grasp. When you attempt to change a habit, you aren't just altering a behavior. You're actually threatening your very sense of self. Let's look at the internal language we use. Phrases like, I am disorganized, I am an anxious person, or I am someone who never finishes projects. These usually start out as completely harmless, momentary descriptions of a behavior. But repeated over years, they calcify, they harden into deep-seated identities. You stop seeing disorganized as a thing you do, and you start seeing it as who you fundamentally are.
And here is the really profound realization that stems from that. Once a flaw becomes part of your identity, attempting to change it feels like an existential threat. If you've spent 10 years believing you are a procrastinator, suddenly waking up and executing flawlessly creates a crisis of identity in your subconscious. The brain panics. It literally asks, wait, if I am not the procrastinator, who am I? This is exactly why we self-sabotage just as we start to see success. People do not fear failure nearly as much as they fear abandoning the person they have believed themselves to be for years.
Section 4. The science of loss aversion.
Remember that psychological experiment from the very beginning of the explainer? Choosing a guaranteed loss over an unknown reward? Well, it's time to put a name to that invisible force driving our decisions. It's called loss aversion. This is a central behavioral bias recognized in both psychology and economics. Put simply, the human brain is wired so that the psychological pain of losing something is mathematically and emotionally vastly more powerful than the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. To your brain, the threat of losing what you currently have absolutely dwarfs the potential of what you might gain in the future.
This principle of loss aversion maps directly on to everyday executive stagnation. Why do we choose known suffering? Why do brilliant professionals stay in soul-crushing jobs, endure toxic relationships, or maintain wildly destructive habits? It's because abandoning the known, even if that known is actively causing you pain, registers to your primitive brain as a terrifying, tangible loss. Your brain vastly overestimates the danger of losing your current comfortable misery and entirely underestimates the massive gains waiting for you on the other side of change.
Section 5. Redefining your future self.
So knowing all of this, knowing about our survival wiring, the trap of identity, and the intense gravity of loss aversion, how do we actually break out? The absolute critical transition you must make is shifting from outcome-based habits to identity-based habits. Most people try to change by forcing an action. I will study more, or I will work harder, but that requires immense, exhausting willpower. Instead, consider the shift from I will study more to I am someone who learns. When you begin to meticulously reprogram your identity, the actions follow automatically. You don't have to force a learner to study. It is simply the effortless consequence of who they are.
To drive the point home with another executive example, it's the difference between I will force myself to go to the gym to get healthy versus adopting the internal posture of I am a person who naturally takes care of my health. Lasting, frictionless change requires your identity to shift before your behavior does. You have to convince your brain that the new behavior is actually safe because it is fully aligned with your new, authentic self.
Ultimately, your life is defined by this constant negotiation. On one side, you have the version of you seeking growth, evolution, and peak performance. And on the other side, you have the deeply wired, ancient version of you aggressively seeking safety and predictability. The real danger here is that safety usually wins because it sounds so incredibly rational in your head. It disguises itself as prudence. It tells you to wait for a better time, to avoid the risk, to play it smart. But you must remember this warning. Today's protective safety measure is tomorrow's absolute prison.
Which brings us to the final, stark reality you have to face. As a high-performing individual, your future will not be defined by the ambitious goals you set, the strategies you write down on a whiteboard, or the changes you merely wish for. Your future is forged strictly by the identity you continuously reinforce. So I'll leave you with this deeply provocative question to ponder long after this explainer ends. When you make your decisions today, which version of yourself are you feeding? The one clinging to the illusion of safety, or the one courageous enough to evolve?